Kia ora koutou, it's me, Radar, with another one of my HR chats with me, Radar. Today, we are talking new organisation challenges need new leadership thinking, and we're talking with Terry McCaul. Who is Terry McCaul? This is Terry McCaul. Hello, Terry. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Teresa. It's a really pleasure to meet you.
Look, a pleasure to meet you as well. For those of you who think that's all well and good, now I know who Terry is. What's he done? He's an expert and thought leader in the development and leadership of sustainable high performance organizations. He's been the CEO and C suite executive across 14 different organizations in both the private and public sectors. He's been an advisor and a consultant to government ministers, executives, boards of governance, instrumental in significant change programs in New Zealand business for the last 40 years or more, I suspect, particularly change that when it comes to culture change and things like that. And most importantly for us, he's a chartered fellow of the HR Institute of New Zealand. Terry, you have been very busy over the last 40 years. And then despite this, you thought, you know what, I've got time to write a book.
I have, yes. When you talk about it in the way that you just have, it seems like it's been quite an interesting career. And to be honest, it has. I wouldn't change it for a minute.
Excellent. Hey, look, you have written a book called The Triple Knot. Can you tell us a little bit about about the book and how you came to decide, you know what I need to do? I need to write a book.
uh, Look, funnily enough, I was told to write a book probably 6 or 7 years ago. It was one of those things. I was working in the public sector. I was a senior executive. A lot of us go through this thing called a career board assessment, which is looking at your potential for future roles as CEOs, etc. At that point, I think I was about 60 years old. They asked me, what was my ambition? I said, well, I don't actually have an ambition to be a CEO in the public sector. Um, in the course of the discussion, it sort of came out of all the different things that I'd done over the course of my career. And they suggested that perhaps it would be useful for me to write a book and help others learn from the experiences that I've had. It took me 6 years and a retirement to actually sit down and do something. And it morphed many, many times. But I changed actually what it was that I was originally going to do and decided to tell it in a different way. But that's where it sort of, the genesis of it was. I was asked to do it. I thought, why not? Give it a crack. Loved every minute of it.
Brilliant. For those people who have not yet, but soon will, decide to read The Triple Knot, what's it all about?
Um, well, look, it's a slightly different view of what an organization could look like and how you would think about designing it and leading it. And the reason I've done this is because the world has shifted remarkably over the last, particularly decade. And, during history, there's always been periods of time where there's been sort of profound and fundamental change. That's happening with us right now. We talk about the future of work, but we've been talking about it for the last 10 years. It's here. And we're using a lot of old models to try and continue to design businesses and organizations that really don't hold any relevance anymore. The world has shifted that much. So the book builds on a concept. It's an ancient concept. It's a Celtic concept. If you picture the Celtic knot, it's an totally interlinked knot. There's no end to it. And it just describes the relationship between three things, any three things. The examples I use are, birth, life, death. And what happens in one affects the others. And it's a fairly simple concept, but if you apply it in a certain way, you can sort of use it to help understand what your priorities in a business might be and how you could design the business to be a high performance organization in a contemporary world and sustainable as well. That's the key thing. It's got to be sustainable.
I mean,
So,
you got go on.
sorry. Look, I was just going to say that it is a very ancient concept applied in a very new way.
So if we take that ancient concept, and we've all certainly seen that Celtic knot, and with the birth, life, death, how do you divide that up into a business sense when you're creating culture or within an organization?
Well, look, over the years that I've worked on many transformations in many different sectors, that's the other thing with my career. It's been across lots of different areas. I found that there's four key things that you could apply a triple knot thinking to. For example, when we talk about sustaining an organization, once upon a time that was about making sure that you um, recycled or you printed on both sides and all of those sorts of things. That's immediately what popped into people's minds. But sustainability is about three things. So there's a triple knot of sustainability, and that is workforce sustainability. If you don't have the workforce with the right capabilities as you go forward and maintaining those and growing those capabilities, you won't sustain performance. Financial sustainability is critical. If you don't have the money to do the things that you're doing and you're running short of money, you're not going to be sustainable. But the third one is the sustainability around meeting society's needs, and that's become more relevant these days than ever before, whatever those needs may be. So it's more than just taking the rubbish out and the recycling in one bin and the rubbish in another. It's ensuring that you are constantly aware of what it is that society expects from you and wishes from you, your society, whoever your customers or owners or whatever may be. So that's the triple knot, for instance, of a sustainable organization, making sure that economically you're sustainable, workforce you're sustainable, and thirdly, it's that societal sustainability that's critical.
Excellent. And so within that, because I did say at the start that today we were talking about that notion of a new form of leadership. How does that new style, that new form of leadership fit into this? And is it a new form, or are we bringing back something that we have seen in the past, perhaps?
Look, I, I don't think there's anything that's a new form, to be honest. It's what comes more to the fore at certain points. So all through history, leadership has pretty much reflected what societal values and societal norms might be. So in the Industrial Revolution, it was the boss telling people this is what you must do, and that was the expectation in your life as well. It's no longer that. So leaders need to be far more conscious of their workers, for example. Now, I've gone through 50 years of work in various things. I've been a tradesperson as well, so I've seen all sorts of different styles of leadership. But there is a style that I think is starting to emerge a little bit more, and that is one it's I didn't really know what to call it, but it's actually acting more like a parent sometimes. And there is the concept of parents as leaders kind of thing, but we're facing issues of resilience in our workforce as the world becomes a lot more complex, and often people are coming into work with anxiety issues or whatever it may be. And leaders need to be far more conscious of how to deal with those sorts of things. So that's one example. So it's a deeper level of leadership. It's actually really about understanding intimately your people and leading them all, because they're all diverse, they're all different. You never used to worry about that as a leader. It sounds trite, but actually you just treated everybody pretty much the same. You can't do that anymore. It will not work.
Right. And is it challenging for people? Which is because we do, I suspect when you say treat people like a parent, there will be some, that sort of um, the paternal overlord versus the more holistic pastoral care type parent. So when people are looking at this, does it challenge them? How far can I go? How far should I go? What kind of, I suppose, parent leader should I be?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. It, it's a it's situational. It really is, because people are different. Yeah, lots of the reading I've been doing recently is based on Australian research around this concept of resilience and resilience in the current workforces, and it affects everybody. It's not this generational thing that Gen Z are less resilient than baby boomers, etc. Everybody has points at where their resilience is hugely tested. But there is a growing trend of mental health issues, anxiety issues. People talk about burnout, etc., etc. And each person being different needs somebody that can spend time understanding what those things are, and then helping to deal with them, much like a parent does with their kids.
Yeah.
But it doesn't just mean empathy. It means sometimes saying, nope, actually, you've got to deal with it. And that is very difficult for a lot of people to do, and particularly at the moment because a lot of people have had that taken away from them. So when I grew up, it was my dad's job to discipline me, kind of thing. And this sounds like the old white man saying this stuff, but actually, it helped me become a bit more mentally fit. We tend to avoid that a little bit, and we look to somebody else to help with that. So, and parents, they're busy as hell, right? They're busy, both of them working and things. So, at home, you might not quite get that chance. So, you're turning up to work, you lack a little bit of that mental toughness, perhaps, and you're expected to do things that you've never done before. And if you don't, it's in or out. So leaders really have to step up to that challenge. It's a difficult, very, very difficult thing.
Look, it's even, even as a parent. You say that HR needs to be more challenging of some of the popular myths. What are the popular myths that you're talking about?
Yeah, look, years ago I presented and wrote an article for the HR magazine on HR lingoism. We're pretty good at inventing new terms and chucking them out there, and sometimes people look at us with a little bit of lack of credibility. Um, yeah, some of the stuff that we see, things like the generational stuff, right? So we talk about Gen Z, and I was just reading something this morning, Gen AI. Now, I don't know whether that's another generation, but quite frankly, um, the same values, the same behaviors, the same underlying emotions that people have had for centuries, they're people, right? They are the same. What's different is context. Um, Now, the actual research that's been done on whether or not there are differences generationally says the opposite. There aren't. And there's been some pretty important research started here in New Zealand, actually. Professor Paul Tolson did some work, I think it was way back in 2011 or something, um, actual, you know, um, academic research on this generational thing. And quite categorically came out saying, no, actually, younger people believe the same sorts of things as older people do. It's just the toys and the context around us has changed.
Yeah.
And we don't seem to understand that. But a lot of HR people, and I don't mean to be critical here, pick up on this because, again, they're very, very busy. They want to do some stuff. But you end up with people talking about, oh, look, we've got to treat these people differently because they're a different generation. It's not really true. We've got to dig a little deeper and be a little bit more, um, I don't know, skeptical of some of this new stuff that comes out. Some of it's great, some of it's true, but actually don't just pick it up and run with it. Makes
You've,
us look silly.
I tell you what, you've been, as you say, in business for more than 40 years. You would have seen things come and things go, and the new shiny thing always captures people's attention. Um, if we look back over those 40 years, what do you think might have been? Can you pinpoint any of those things that came through that people thought this is going to be the thing, and they very quickly became superseded?
Ooh.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
um, Yeah, look, I don't know about very quickly, but there's been a range of things that have been led by HR because a lot of people, they sort of think, well, we'll pass it over to the HR people because they're the people who are people, um, which isn't necessarily true. But one of those things was the setting up of yeah, things like rooms for people to come in and voice their unhappiness at the world. Yeah, they did it, believe it or not, in 2016 when Trump first became the president in the US. In the universities in the US, they created crying rooms for students to come in and actually just cry because they were so sad that Trump was in it. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it
They-
was
They've they've
HR.
got yeah they've got rid of those rooms now, and people just do it in their cars, and then they
Well,
they
it's
live stream it for
true.
the world to see.
Well, this is entirely true, but HR sometimes buy into these things and actually lead them, and then go, oh, actually, it's a little bit silly. Some of these things, we can commiserate with people and we can help people through it, but
Yeah,
actually, do we want to do that? Create misery? We
Look, I don't
most
know that we do. Hey, look, as I say, you've been around for a long time. Your career's worked many different organisations, many different sectors. In the book, you describe quite a different approach to designing a business. So, I suppose, is this based upon a lot of things that you have seen work, that you have seen not work, that you've brought together into a beautiful synthesis? And how do you know, given that we've talked about great ideas and not so great ideas, how do you know it's going to work?
um, well, over the course of the years, and what I've done in the book actually is I've put a whole bunch of things together that I've had and I've used and I've worked with in yeah, various different organizations. So these are not things that have just popped into my head and stuck together. But I'll give you an example. And the book, by the way, is uses a lot of these examples. The idea of workplace design used to be about building an office that was really nice, and you didn't sit Bob next to Terry because those two didn't get on, or whatever it might be. But workplace design is far more complex these days because the workplace A can be anywhere, and B, it's actually this is a triple knot, the workplace triple knot. There's the physical workplace, and that could be at home, which I'm sitting in my office right now, and I'm lucky enough to have a nice desk and all of those things, but not everybody does have. There's the digital or virtual workspace, and everybody's working online. And then there's the psychological workspace. You can't design one without thinking of the impact of your design in the other. So an application of that, for instance, would be when I was working at Stats New Zealand. I was chief operating officer there for a while, and we had to build a new building in Wellington and Willow Street because ours got knocked over by an earthquake. Terrible thing. But we actually designed all three workplaces at the same time. So when we were building a beautiful physical building, we were also considering, well, how does it work technologically? And how does it work psychologically, particularly for people that might have different forms of neurodiversity, for instance. So that was a different way of going about designing our workplaces, and we considered those who were working from home, etc. And luckily we did because COVID came along and hit us before we finished the building, and we had to really figure out what are we going to do about people working from home. So different people were sitting in the room, not just an architect building the building and an office designer. HR were in the room a lot talking about how people were thinking about this, how the psychological space may work. Now, that works. It's a great building. I don't know if you've ever been in the Stats building in Wellington, but it's a great building. Doesn't do what we designed it to now because there's two other departments in there. But yeah, that demands a different type of thinking.
Certainly does. Look, whenever things like this come up, books come out, there's always going to be the skeptics, even around the notion, I suppose, of the change in the style of leadership that we have now. The working from home, the acknowledging an eclectic, diverse workforce. What do you say to the doubters out there? They're going to say, nope, this is the way we do it. We're going to power on through.
Yeah, look, another good question. There's always doubters, right? The thing is that if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll either get the same results, which quite frankly aren't that good. I was just reading recently that New Zealand is, in terms of productivity, number 63 of the 67 OECD countries. And, we've dropped over the last decade from about 1.4% national productivity to 0.2. It's pretty poor. And you can't blame it all on COVID and so on and so forth. There's something else that we need to be working on. I know Treasury are trying to get their heads around this. But we need to try and do something more. And it's always struck me, for instance, that when you read a book like Good to Great or Built to Last and these sorts of things, these are academic institutions that send their professors out and they do these 5-year studies and find these organizations that have done these great things, tell everybody else, and we all start doing those great things. It's the people who start, it's the people who try things, it's the people who innovate that actually lead the charge. And you can fail on a few of these things. So yeah, I'm fine. There will be doubters out there. Decide for yourself whether you want to try something here. But this stuff does work, and this stuff is logical. It makes real sense when you start to unpick it. and it brings your leadership team together and gives you a binding sort of glue for running your organization. So it's really, I'm not going to try and convince people. It's up to them
No.
to support it.
Yeah. Look, and that is the thing, you're going to find people who do want to embrace these things, and the others that'll stay with their stick in the mud ideas, complaining about their workforce and sitting on their 0.2% productivity. Hey, look, you mentioned using some of the examples when you were putting together, for example, that design of the stats building and things like that. But what are any other concepts that you've used in the work that you've trialed, or that you saw and you thought, look, this is really great, and I'm going to bring this on board?
Yeah, look, I think one of the critical things is to stop relying on kind of big process with your people and get closer to your people. So again, one of the organizations that I work with, we had a massive performance management system. And HR people would come to work and go, "Wow, lovely! We've got a wonderful big performance appraisal system," and managers have to sit down and do all of the check-in and have conversations with staff, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody hated it. The only people who liked it was HR. We know inherently that people perform well when they've got people coaching them, and good performers have coaches. Poor performers generally don't. So we worked a lot with our managers to create a coaching kind of culture in the organization, and that did lift performance. That's one of the critical things here is having conversations, having adult conversations. Sorry, I've got a little dog in the background here that's
Thank
trying
you.
to
What's the dog's name?
Pippin.
Did Pippin provide you with great solace while you were writing the book?
Yes, she did. She did, but she's not currently here. She's trying to get out the door. But that's all
Because
right.
because again, look, that's a part of it as well. That change in the workplace, we've seen a lot of conversations about. People can bring their dogs to work. There's all these little changes that just make coming to work a better and a more enjoyable experience for people who may not otherwise. None of us want to turn up 9 to 5. These little things can make a difference.
Look, it's exactly right. And the fact is that life and work are no longer separate from what they used to be, right? So it's the same thing. It's not work-life balance, it's life-work balance. It's that whole thing. So managers are and should be talking with each of their people. So instead of having surveys, for instance, to find out how do people feel every year, we would talk to managers and employees. So we're creating relationships. And the focus there was on helping employees understand, well, what's preventing you from performing? How can I help you do that work? It was a coaching relationship. So our intelligence network was conversations, not surveys. And a lot of HR people love surveys, but a lot don't.
Yeah. Hey, look, is it specifically for HR people, the book? Or is it for anyone
No,
interested in leadership, personal development, growth?
it's more interested for people who know that they need to change organizations. One of the things that I've been really frustrated with, particularly over the last 5 years perhaps, has been that change isn't being driven as much by HR or involving HR as much as perhaps it should. We've got change experts coming out of our ears, and they've all got transformation certificates and God knows what else, but they tend, and this is me being critical, I'm sorry, but they tend to follow a process approach to change and assume that everybody's the same, and they're not. And what worries me is that, I've seen some appalling change programs going on, particularly in Wellington, particularly over the last few years. And people just seem to be, collateral damage. So it's for anybody that's contemplating change, contemplating doing it a little bit differently, have a look at this.
And speaking of doing it a little bit differently, actually, what I haven't told people is that you've actually written it, unusual, I suspect, for a book in this particular sphere in the form of a novel. What inspired that?
Yeah, look, I got bookshelves full of business books, as you can imagine. I've acquired a few of them over 50 years. I find most of them really boring, particularly the how to, do this and you'll win friends. But stories are great. Stories are wonderful. They're a cultural thing. This is how cultures survive, is through the stories and the legends. So I wrote it as a novel, just for a bit more interest. It is a business novel. It has elements of all sorts of little stories in there, but essentially, the stories in there are true. So these are things that have actually happened through my career and through other people's careers. So people can look at it and they'll go, oh, I kind of recognize that. I'm in here. And that's the important thing for it. So telling the story, I think, is a great way of transferring the knowledge.
Yeah.
Not everybody's cup of tea. I know some people like how-to books, but not for me.
Hey, look, it goes back to what you said earlier on, really, when you were talking about getting to understand your staff and know, essentially what you're doing is you're finding out what's their story. We all want to know this. We're, as you say, we are hardwired for this kind of thing, and if you can find out somebody's story, you can get a pretty good sense of maybe where they're coming from. Hey, you've been around for a long time. Got an example? You might want to pull it from the book. Worst thing you've seen in a workplace where you might have been involved in it, or you walked in and you looked at it and went, "Well, this is a debacle." No, you
um,
don't have to name names.
okay. Look, I'll go back to a point in time where many of the members of the HR Institute probably weren't even born. So this is back in the 80s when there was a bucket load of massive change going on in New Zealand as we were privatizing a lot of government departments and so on and so forth. One of the organizations I was working with was shifting from public sector to private sector. So it was going through a massive change, and it was taking years to do this. I was in the training group at the time, and we were running a program which was all about self-awareness and everything, and all over the country, every employee was going through this. I happened to be in the Waikato, in the training department. I wasn't delivering the training, but I was there to help. We were given a basket with envelopes, each of us, to stand outside the doors as people were leaving, and we were handing that random envelopes to people. What we didn't know was that was telling them that you were losing your job. So I think
That is literally one of the worst things I have ever
it's
heard.
it's pretty appalling, isn't it? But the senior management at the time didn't see what was wrong with it. And I'm sitting, I'm sort of young
God.
in the training department thinking, oh my God, this is terrible.
Terry, it's not often that I'm flabbergasted with just how appalling we can be to our fellow citizens, but
Absolutely.
I'm quite floored by that. God,
Well,
it was a different. I'm going to say it was a different time, but I'm not sure that a lot of it necessarily was. Mm,
no, it wasn't.
yeah. How about what are the single best things you've ever seen? Where you've just walked in and go, wow, this person, this organization, they really get it. It may not even be in business. It could be in a community, sport, life, whatever it may be. Someone you've said, what a great little thing they've done.
Yeah. Gosh, that is a hard one. I think I'll probably go to a particular. Um, it was a smaller organization, but it was a subsidiary of a larger unit, where the chief executive somehow had an epiphany, and he wanted to really shift how he ran the business. Um, and it was no, I won't say the industry it was in because people would probably guess the business just looking at my CV. Um, but he struck me as being a very strong, values-driven people person, and I hadn't really seen that until then. So this was one of my early forays into organizational development. Um, and yeah, his view was we need to run this organization on values. This was in the days when nobody talked values. So we did. We didn't know what we were doing, but we did everything we could to accentuate, to drive values. And staff got excited, got really
Yeah.
excited by it. As a subsidiary company, it blew all of the other companies away in terms of profitability, staff retention, and all those things. And it was just an exciting place to be because people treated people as people. And that stuck with me forever. It's kind of shaped a lot of what I do. And it does work.
It
So
absolutely, yeah. Yes, it does. Hey, look, got to wrap up. Any words of advice? If we've got some, HR professionals have tuned in. Um, eh, any general words of advice, or any words of advice in terms of starting to get more involved in driving some of that strategic change of at work?
Yeah, look,
Other
I
than
think.
buy the book, obviously, and read it.
Oh, yeah. Well, hang on.
Do you
I
have a
need to
copy?
hold it up.
There it
There it
is.
is.
Hey, nice cover. Yeah.
Oh,
Where
thank
can
you.
people get it, Terry?
On Amazon, just go
Great.
Google it on Amazon and put my name in because there is a set of romance books called The Triple Knot as well. That was
I
not
tell you,
me.
I tell you what, it'd be some very odd business strategy coming coming out of people thought that was the business advice they were supposed to be following. I'm sure that there'll be a link as well under the podcast or something like that. Contact HR&Z. But yes, so we had advice, words
Look,
of wisdom.
just a little bit. I think always be skeptical because there's pressure on, particularly in the HR area, to buy this program or talk to this consultant or get this coaching thing or whatever it might be. Um, I think you always need to be skeptical and run the good sense test over it. Talk to people, be pragmatic. Um, and when looking at things, just don't dive into it because if HR loses credibility, it's because maybe the time wasn't right to do something. Um, but it just feels a little bit that we've gone into a commoditized kind of an HR world where there's tons of products, tons of leadership programs and coaches and things. And actually, um, you know, we've got to be sensible. We really got to be sensible. So I'd encourage people in the HR professions to just be a little bit more skeptical about it and see what the downsides of it are before getting too excited about doing some things. That's all.
Brilliant. Hey, thank you very much, Terry. How's retirement working out? Clearly busy.
Yeah, look, I love it. It's I don't think I've been busier doing sort of things. So I get to do grandfather things, I get to do father things, I get to write a book and try to promote it occasionally. Um, but it's on my time, it's on my energy, and that's the
Yeah.
main thing.
Hey, look, and actually, one of the great things about books such as yours, that style of leadership, that people being able to be their best people at work is actually, with the new, I guess, structures of business and things like that, people can fit that in now into their lives rather than having to wait until such time as it's further down the track. I imagine.
Critical, critical.
Critical. Hey, look, thank you very much, Terry McCaul. The book is called The Triple Knot. Google it on Amazon. Watch out that it's not the romance one. So make sure you put Terry's name in. It's MC. How do you spell your name, Terry?
MCCAUL.
There you go. I wanted to make sure you got that right because I don't have it sitting in front of me. I would have sent someone down the wrong track. Brilliant. Terry McCaul. We shall allow you to go and spend some wonderful time doing those things that you are doing. But from us for now on HR Chats with me, Dorado, that is it. If you have anything that you would like us to talk about, we've got a swag of new podcasts coming out in the very near future. Do let us know, or let the HR NZ office know as well. We're happy to look to chat about anything that is of, I was going to say of concern to you, anything of concern, anything you wish to celebrate, anything at all in the HR world or HR related. All right, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, Terry.